Good evening. I've received a couple of requests for me to review or report on the legend known as the Oak Island Money Pit, also known as the Mystery of Oak Island. I just love this story. And what's not to love? It's got everything. Pirate treasure, lost manuscripts, the Knights Templar, the Ark of the Covenant, Inca gold, the crown jewels of England, Viking plunder, the Holy Grail, the Freemasons, alien technology, and leprechauns, all rolled into one tall tale of a very deep hole in the ground. The basic story of the Oak Island Money Pit begins in the year 1795 and tells of a strapping young lad named Daniel McGinnis and two young friends of his rowing to the deserted island just off the Nova Scotia coast and finding something interesting that may have been a place where pirates buried their booty. What they saw was a large round depression in the ground that was recently disturbed, and over this a large branch from a nearby oak tree hanging over it with a large block and tackle pulley hanging from the branch. Using their highly developed rationale, the boys quickly surmised that this was where the infamous pirate Captain Kidd had buried his treasure, and that his crew had left the pulley on the tree above the pit to throw them off the trail. There was certainly no reason for them to believe the pulley was left there by any of the farmers who had lived on the island at the time, no cause to think that it was just another one of hundreds of sinkholes common to that area of Nova Scotia, and if buried treasure had been buried there, why would they think the pulley was there from when it was found and removed? Nope, all of that had to be leprechaun tricks to dissuade them from the truth. The truth that there was a pot of gold, or something unknown, that was definitely down there, even though they had no idea what it could be. So they began digging. They hit some logs at 10 feet, and then again at 20 feet, and then again at 30 feet. And that's where the three of them stopped, and even though they had no rope or ladder, they managed to scamper out of the 30-foot hole with no problem at all. Now this story began the massive search and numerous expeditions for the next 200 years for the elusive leprechaun gold that has remained always just beyond anyone's grasp. Oh, did I say leprechaun gold? I meant treasure. The story has changed a bit since its first telling. Here is a TV version of the story from the 1959 show Treasure with Bill Burrard.
One of these buccaneers is an engineering genius, the mind behind a plan so complex it has frustrated the efforts of treasure hunters for 150 years.
Now our story begins on a cold, foggy day, sometime in the late 1700s. The setting, a small island covered by oak trees off the coast of Nova Scotia. The cast crew of pirates who come ashore to hide a treasure from the eyes of the world. A treasure estimated to be worth $6 million.
The old people often told tales of fierce pirates who had landed and buried their loot on Oak Island and then disappeared into the mists. But for three adventurous boys out for an afternoon of exploration, tall tales like this only inspired them to greater interest in the deserted little island that lay waiting across the bay itself. And then suddenly, they saw a floating barrel, the kind used by pirates for mooring their ships. Suddenly, one of the boys spotted a ship's mooring ring hidden underneath the water near the beach. There was more. The remains of a campfire. This only added to the haunted feeling of this island. Rocks with markings on them, on an island that was supposed to be deserted. Could the tales of pirates and buried treasure be true? Had someone been here just a short time ago? Later on, The same three boys came across an old oak tree with one limb sawed part way off. Beneath the tree, they found a depression in the ground. Could this be a hole where treasure had been buried? They were sure it was just that.
In contrast, here is the most recent version of the story from the experts over at the History Channel.
In 1795, 3 Nova Scotia farm boys set out to explore nearby Oak Island after witnessing strange green lights coming from its shore in the middle of the night.
As they came to the island, they saw that there was one little, pit that they thought, well, this is very odd. So they started to dig in that particular spot. They came across different platforms made out of wood, especially out of oak. And the deeper they dug, they also came across a mat made of coconut fiber. And they came across a stone slab that had very bizarre writing on it.
The initial excavation stopped at a depth of 30 feet.
These are just 2 versions, but there are many more, although the History Channel was the only one I found that showed flashing green leprechaun lights. I find it interesting that all of these seriously minded researchers keep telling the revised versions of the story when the original story doesn't say anything about 3 boys finding the pit. The original story relates the finding of this by 3 men, one of which was the aforementioned Daniel McGinnis, who was, at the time of the story, 38 years old, and had served as a loyalist soldier during the Revolutionary War. Not only that, but he and his 2 friends all owned property and lived on Oak Island at the time of the story, and there were those who had lived there before them. So the claim of it being deserted was obviously wrong. The records from that time bears this out. Also, when we look at the records about the treasure pit from that time, we see that there aren't any records. Nor are there any records from the next excavation attempt, claimed to have occurred around 1804, when all of this was said to have happened.
Based on the findings from numerous excavations, the money pit contains a series of oak platforms, starting at a depth of 10 feet, and recurring every 10 feet thereafter, going at least 200 feet down. In between these platforms are slabs of flagstone, not indigenous to the island, and layers of puddle clay.
So this is what we know. Many centuries ago, someone constructed a giant hydraulic system under this island.
Now that was some serious shit. It looks like whoever built this thing had spent hundreds of man-hours and used hundreds of men and quite a bit of tools and equipment to construct this incredible feat of engineering. You can tell by the amount of worn tracks, tools, equipment, and previous encampments that had not been left behind. Just one pulley in a tree, left there to let strangers know where to dig. But there is some hard evidence, like this reconstruction of the stone that had been found in the pit and then lost, but was recreated just like the original that no one had photographed or sketched or took a rubbing of before it went missing. The letters represent a simple substitute code where each symbol represents a letter of the alphabet. It is said that this code was used by the Freemasons and that these symbols are Celtic in origin. But if that was the case, who was it that taught the Freemasons how to use them? Could it be that the Celtic symbols were those used by ancient leprechauns? That's one theory. Hell, there are dozens or so theories out there floating around. Here is an interesting one offered up by the History Channel.
There is a possibility that the Ark of the Covenant with its contents has been hidden on Oak Island.
The Ark of the Covenant? The most sacred object in all of Judeo-Christianity? Ancient astronaut theorists believe the Ark may have been hidden because of the powers it held. Powers from out of this world.
The Ark of the Covenant housed an extraterrestrial device.
Now, why the leprechaun theory is being ignored is completely beyond me. If you can believe space aliens are real, then why not leprechauns? Especially since there have been so many people who had reported seeing them. Here is just one expert's opinion.
Just down the street here, PJ O'Hare's, they've actually got the evidence of the leprechaun bones down there. And we've actually got coins as well. By the way, that's top secret. You don't know where they are. Even I don't know. And I'm in a pretty close circle with the whole thing. So I would absolutely say that I do believe in it. There's no doubt that I do believe in it. A lot of people are skeptical, which is fine, but if you come here and you come to the mountains and the whole lot, you see it, it's fantastic.
Over the years, I've come to believe in leprechauns myself. I saw 3. In my lifetime, I've seen 3.
And yes, hard evidence has been recovered, as with this example.
He heard a scream coming from the area of the wishing well, which is on Sleafy in Carlingford, and he went over to investigate. And when he went over, he found what you see here is the suit and the bones, which are over here. And in the pocket of the suit, there were 4 gold coins. And beside them, there was an area of scorched earth. So he brought them down, and he brought them in here. And we believe that they are authentic, the only authentic artifacts of leprechauns ever found in Ireland.
There is even evidence that proves that leprechauns have migrated to America as indicated by this video.
To me, it look like a leprechaun to me. All I gotta do is look up in the tree. Who else in the leprechaun say yeah? Yeah!
Yeah, still on there, guy. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, man.
This guy helping to direct traffic says he's prepared for his encounter with the leprechaun. He's suited up from head to toe.
This wars off spells right here. This is a special leprechaun flute, which has been passed down from thousands of years ago from my great-great-grandfather who was Irish. I just came to help out.
So it's no surprise at all that this theory is gaining ground among the Oak Island theorists.
I still have a fellow who still writes me from Dublin, Ireland, who is absolutely convinced that there's a whole family, not a whole family actually, a whole village of leprechauns living under the island. And he sends me drawings of the little homes and their little living rooms and little TV sets and so on, what it looks like underneath the money pit.
For all we know, Daniel McGuinness and several of his friends found out about the leprechaun gold and attempted to keep it quiet for nearly 10 years until the Crown caught wind of it. I can well imagine a mad dash to recover the gold with the Royal Army hot on their heels. Here's a History Channel reenactment.
Stop right there. So it be my bridge you want to cross? Or are I after my pot of gold?
Pardon me?
No one crosses my covered bridge without answering 3 questions. Be you get them right, you can cross. Be you get them wrong, I kill you and eat your brains. The night brings dark, the day brings light. The morning cool, the evening bite. To cross my merry little bridge, you need 3 things to know. If you answer 3
Stephen! Ah! Quick, quick! Over the bridge, over the bridge!
What the fuck is that?
Okay. I can say beyond question that the entire premise of something of value being down there is without any merit whatsoever. Even though newspapers have been in the area since before 1795, There has been not one scrap written about the Oak Island fable prior to 1857, a full 62 years after it was allegedly found. I know from the bottomless pit of my heart that it's nothing but wishful thinking and hopeful dreams. And I should know. I used to be a treasure hunter and explorer. Then I took an arrow to the knee.